Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. On this very episode, we are reviewing Cherry, The Vigil, and I Care a Lot. We're going to revisit the Lord of the Rings re-release on IMAX, and our topic this week is great movie plots that just didn't work. Let's get on with the show. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today, my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, Aaron, how you doing tonight?
Tired.
Yeah, I know what that means.
Amanda Sink.
Hello, hello.
Hey, yeah, I just got back from my first road trip in over a year, I think. I mean, real road trip, like I've gone camping, but my first went into a different city and had to deal with people. It's odd. I saw my son for his birthday and did some axe throwing, and that was interesting.
Don't talk about this too much. You might get canceled.
Axe throwing?
Traveling. People have opinions.
They might.
You never know.
People freak out. I wore a mask the whole time. I did. I wore a mask the whole time. Although we did witness a bar location that was a distance from us where nobody was partaking in the whole mask thing. They were just, they weren't even 6 inches apart.
So it was the orgy bar.
No, I mean, it was just a normal bar, Amanda. I don't know if, you're young. Yeah, back in the old days when people went to the bars, what they would do is they would sit around and they would
I'm
talk.
less than a year old.
Yeah, you're an infant. So young.
Wow. Okay, so somebody else can come wipe my ass then.
Yep.
We're all just waiting for those times where somebody's going to go be wiping our asses for us, I think.
I mean, that's the beginning and the end of life, so.
I'm game. It's kind of a hassle. I don't really like to deal with it.
So you guys are lucky. You don't have to worry about the complexities of going to the bathroom like women do.
I'm pretty sure
problematic.
It's complex for everybody. And we should get away from this topic as soon as humanly possible. Let's go back to we were throwing axes like Vikings, and that was a cool thing I've never done before. Amanda, I know you have done it before,
yes,
right?
It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
John, have you ever done axe throwing?
No, I'm not a lot of sharp implements since the incident.
The incident?
The incident.
We don't want to know what that is because it's probably
I kind of want to know.
No.
Do you want to tell people?
He had a sharp object and something went bad. I definitely want the story.
You really just don't understand jokes.
That's for the $50 tier in Patreon.
Nice.
That's patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider.
Anyway, what I found out was to do axe throwing, you have to have depth perception, which is something that I struggle with. It's why I can't play softball. My buddy Dennis for years would always not invite me to play when he needed a sub because I couldn't catch the ball. That's why I don't have depth perception. So same thing with an axe. I kind of throw it off a little bit every time. So he kicked my ass.
Wait a minute. Why don't you have depth perception?
I don't know. Why don't you call my eye doctor and ask her?
Do you have like a lazy eye?
No, I just have.
Do you have a lazy eye?
I just don't have great depth perception. I have it. It's just not. It's not completely accurate.
This was just a roundabout way for him to say that he got his butt kicked.
Yeah, because why not brag about getting your ass handed to you? That's a big
no, but
thing.
you made some excuses to beef it up, like, oh well,
an excuse. That's why I can't see it.
My depth perception isn't great, so this is going to take away from the fact that I got my butt beat.
Do you randomly walk into walls without because you can't tell how far they are from you?
It's not that
like
bad.
A little puppy.
It's not that bad. It's you misgauge how objects in mirror are closer than they appear is what a lot of it is. If it's like trying to catch a ball, I almost can never do it. Unless it's coming really slow. Really slow.
Just in the rear view mirror.
You know what? Let's do our news roundup. Let's get to that because I don't even know why I shared this story with you.
I was going to ask you if you've seen the Ryan Reynolds video of him axe throwing and he ends up putting Hugh Jackman's face at the end, which is funny if you've followed their
No, I haven't seen it. Well, I know they're rival
throughout history. Yeah.
That's pretty fantastic.
It's hilarious.
All right. Well, on our news roundup this week, The Muppets dropped on Disney Plus. And we're promptly slapped with a disclaimer for the TV show. So every time you watch an episode, it tells you to be mindful of, these are old depictions and da-da-da-da. Sasha Calle was cast as Supergirl for the upcoming Flash movie, first Latina, which is fantastic. DC's The Blue Beetle is getting its own movie. Easy Rollins is a character I'm a big fan of from the books. It's a slick PI. He's a slick PI in 1950s LA that was notably played by Denzel Washington in Devil in a Blue Dress, if you ever saw that movie. It's getting a new series through Amblin Entertainment. Disney and Marvel finally have the rights back to Jessica Jones and the Punisher from Netflix. They said, give it back to us. Speaking of Netflix, Tim Burton is heading up an Addams Family spinoff focused on Wednesday Addams for Netflix. Only way I'm watching that is if Christina Ricci plays Morticia. I'm just letting you know ahead of time, Burton. And New York City movie theaters can finally reopen to limited capacity on March 5th, which is one of the biggest markets in the country. So, whew, that's awesome. Of all that, what are you excited about? Let's just say the movie theaters.
I'm actually super excited about seeing the Blue Beetle on the big screen, and it's the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, which is awesome.
What does any of this mean? I don't speak, John.
Blue Beetle's been around forever. There's been 3 Blue Beetles. One of them, the first one took his power from the Scarab, which I'll get into the Scarab in a second. That was his last name is Garrett, and then Ted Kord took over as the Blue Beetle, but he never took his power from the Scarab. He was more of an inventor, but he had the Scarab. He lost the Scarab. It got thrown into the ether and then landed in Texas, and a kid named Jaime Reyes found it.
Sounds like some fantastic lore. All right. What does the Blue Beetle do? Run around, try not to get squashed? What?
So the Jaime Reyes version of the Blue Beetle is essentially, now my background with it is through a couple of cartoons and a little bit of the comics. This character is the Scarab itself is something that's sent to Earth from space, from an alien race, and it's here to basically start an alien invasion on the continent. But because it ends up forming a bond with Jaime Reyes, it turns him into this weapon. Now that weapon is kind of like a mixture of like what you'll see is sort of like Shazam meets Iron Man, because you have this phenomenal cosmic powers in an adaptive, ever-changing suit of armor, and you're gonna have a kid playing the main character.
Okay, so it's a superhero I'm not familiar with. So this is like a very third tier DC superhero, fourth tier? Where are we at with this?
I would say third tier is pretty accurate. He's becoming more popular now because of the way they're taking the character with the Jaime Reyes route, and this is kind of like it's kind of like DC's Miles Morales, essentially, is what they did with this character.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Well, I'm pretty stoked for Easy Rollins. I think I said that, but I'm a big fan of those books. It's just a PI in the 50s, and he's going to deal with racial inequality and some other issues, as well as try to solve some crimes. And I'm a big fan of any detective series. And Devil in a Blue Dress is a really good movie if you haven't seen it. Don Cheadle's in it too.
But also take a moment to get excited about Marvel and The Punisher and Jessica Jones as a possible return.
You think?
I better get a Punisher return.
Or what, Amanda?
With John Bernthal. Or I'm going to go Punisher on somebody at the Marvel
I don't
place.
think they're that worried about it. I think they got enough security to keep you out.
Come on, Disney. No, see, I'll just bat my pretty eyelash extensions that I got, and they'll be like, oh, okay, you can come in.
They'll
and I'll
never
have a conversation.
Well, I love Bernthal's Punisher. Like that's a fantastic show, I think.
He's so amazing.
I can't see them, the Marvel of today, doing anything remotely close to what Netflix did with Punisher. I just can't see it.
I mean, you say that, but Disney is also giving a chance to Deadpool. Disney and Marvel are giving a chance to Deadpool as like the Deadpool we know him to be.
I mean, they could put the Punisher in Deadpool. That would work. I mean, it would make sense. That could work.
They could still continue with the show. I'm just to your point that I get that it's Netflix went very dark and brutal and oh God, it was amazing. I don't think that I'm sure there's a way for that to still exist because they know that there's money in that.
They'll just tone it way down.
No, I don't want them to tone it down.
There's no way. There's like scenes where he's punching a guy's face until the face is gone. That's not going to happen.
Okay, but if Deadpool's going to happen, then there's a chance it could still happen. And it'll probably just air on Hulu.
I'm not convinced Deadpool is going to be on. Yeah, that's supposed to come, but I'm just not convinced it's not going to be neutered in some way. Disney just has a knack for.
I don't know that Ryan Reynolds would continue and get everybody hyped up if he didn't still have the character he knows it to be. And he has influence in that too. which gives me hope. And so all of that hope, if you want to try to take it away from me, you can't.
I'm not
Aaron,
trying to take it away from you.
You can't.
I want to see
You can't
Bernthal.
touch the John Bernthal Punisher love that I have and the hope that I have for the resurrection.
I think Bernthal's fantastic. I just don't know if they will be able to do that in the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, they could probably just get... I mean, he's such a down and dirty in that show. Don't get me wrong, Punisher's a down and dirty character, but it was so violent. I mean, really violent.
But money. So maybe.
Maybe. It's not like Disney's hurting for money. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, they're not really hurting that much for money, and it's, I just rewatched Endgame, and the whole scene where they lop off Thanos' head. Spoilers. That was even very neutered as far as the scene's concerned.
Yeah, that would be.
But that was intended to be for families too. Punisher is not. Punisher has never been a family-oriented film or show.
Fair.
In either.
But Marvel also hasn't had the rights to it.
Yeah,
Right.
no, that's true. No, that's true. I'm just saying the possibility exists.
It exists. But you know what? You know what it's going to be though, man. This is what it's going to be. This is what I picture anyway. I'm sorry, it's not definitive. It's going to be, if they keep Bernthal, which they should, because he was great. It's going to be him. He's going to put his thumbs on some dude's eyes, and they're going to cut away, and you're going to hear that guy screaming, and you're going to hear dub dialogue where it's like, "Oh no, my eyes! Ow! Ow!" And then you show Bernthal's face, and then maybe you get some blood splatter, but that's the maximum I think Disney lets happen.
Or, he's sitting there blasting away at people on the street, and they're all supposed to be bad guys, but you keep on seeing the exact same guy, or, just guy wearing like a full helmet, completely in body armor, so you can't see any sort of features that is a person. That same person over and over and over again gets blasted away.
Yeah, it's like stormtroopers everywhere.
Yep, pretty much.
John, you mentioned that Disney's not hurting for money. Disney has not been hurting for money in a long time, but they still continue to do stuff that they know is going to generate more money because that's who Disney is.
Yeah.
They just acquired another Canadian version of Hulu and dropped that into their Disney Plus. So I don't think that there's anything outside the scope of their willingness to consider if it means more money. And those properties do mean more money because people were pissed when Netflix announced this, the ending of the shows. So I think if the revival came back, they would get a lot of Netflix subscribers that they don't currently have. And I believe there are plenty.
I admire your drive and your appreciation for this.
Don't take this away from me just because I'm a woman.
No, I
What?
You can't come back from this. Now that I said that, you can't come back from it. It's just...
I admire your drive and appreciation for everything you're saying. Like it is very heartwarming to me as someone who loves comics to see somebody like you decide comics are cool. The thing is though is that Marvel doesn't have a really good track record with going dark. Look at what it did with the Hulu show that it did have. It's already canceled the dark Hulu show, which was
Hailstrom.
Yeah, Hellstrom. So it doesn't have a really good track record with it because they're trying so hard to walk the line of creating something that's dark but safe, that seeing Punisher come back as dark but safe will hurt the story and hurt the show. We're not convinced that we're going to see a dark but safe Deadpool. It's possible because Ryan Reynolds is still at the center of it, and it's possible that Ryan Reynolds could still do his song and dance routine without the amount of blood that he likes to do it with as Deadpool. It's possible, but we haven't seen it yet. And I admire your hope and your appreciation and your drive to make this happen just strictly off of a sheer force of will. But it's one of those wait and see things for me.
This just felt like what somebody has when somebody has a conversation with you about how you're so smart and you're so wonderful, but you didn't get the job, just so you know. That's what this conversation felt like to me, where the sad news was just like buried and sandwiched in the middle.
This, then. I feel like it should be you should be used to it.
Me? No,
sorry, you don't have enough testosterone for this job. It's okay.
Oh,
wow.
Burn.
Wow.
John, I will say in rebuttal,
nice way to throw it back, though. Good job. She tried to put you in a hole and you came right back out of it. Good job.
In rebuke to that, though, there is nothing definitive in either way.
No, there isn't.
You're right. And I'm not saying that 100% I know what's going to happen or I believe it's going to happen. I'm just hopeful it will.
That would be a lie.
And Deadpool gives me hope. You know, if we just continue, I think, to put a little pressure on what we want, consumers drive the industry. Consumers drive entertainment at this point. So if we continue to say, hey, man, I'll give you some more money if you just give me lots of blood and violence, then you know what? We just might get it. It just won't be on Disney Plus. It'll be on Hulu because that's where the adult content is going.
Hashtag release the Bernthal cut. That's what she's saying.
Ooh, yeah. Let's start that.
All right. Remember, you can always find more information at thehollywoodoutsider.com. Join our Facebook group, or we're on Twitter at BuyPopcorn. I do want to add the movie theaters, that's just New York City, and California is the other big, giant area that we're waiting to open up. Once that opens up, I think you're going to start seeing the movie business come back alive. But New York's a huge one. So good for movies. If you're a movie fan, you're a movie theater fan, that's great news. All right. We are off next week, so we'll share one of our older bad movie nights from Patreon in the feed. We're debating between Bad Boys and Anaconda. You guys let us know, and that'll be like a sample, so you can hear what you're missing by not being a Patreon supporter, which you can be one at patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider. That's patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider. That helps our show because we're independently funded. It helps fans support their favorite podcasts. And we have 2 new supporters, Christian Rickman. Welcome aboard. I wonder if you're any relation to Alan Rickman. I'm just going to assume you are, and that your uncle's awesome. And Scott Calgaro, welcome back to being a Patreon supporter. So thank you guys again, patreon.com/The Hollywood Outsider.
Thanks, guys, and welcome aboard.
All right, we've got some.
Now we need like a cruising reference. Like somebody else needs to be like.
Nobody needs that.
Captain of the ship.
Nobody needs that. Nobody.
Okay.
We're not doing a Love Boat here. So we've got some reviews. First up is Cherry, which hits theaters February 26th before it debuts on Apple Plus on March 12th.
This is the one that stars Tom Holland, the wild journey of a disenfranchised young man from Ohio who meets the love of his life only to risk losing her through a series of bad decisions and challenging life circumstances. Now, this one is from the Russo brothers, but the directing duo's younger sister, Angela Russo-Otstadt, is actually a co-writer for the screenplay. So I thought that was kind of cool to
nice and family-oriented.
Yeah. But Aaron, you saw this one, and it's supposed to be Tom Holland's more adult and serious debut as an actor. Do you get that? Is there success on his end?
All right. I want to preface with...
Oh, boy.
Hey, hold tight. I loved The Devil All the Time. That was one of my favorite movies last year. Tom Holland's a star of it. So I know Tom Holland can be a good actor. And he's not bad here. He's fine. He does a fine job, which is what every actor wants to hear from any kind of critic. Mostly what I'll tell you is there are several moments in the movie which required the character to have a certain amount of swagger. You know what I mean? Like a certain amount of just a cocksure walk, just a little bit of attitude that fit the swagger definition. And all those scenes made me really think of is how worried I am about that Uncharted movie, because that character's all swagger. And I just feel like when Holland's trying to do that, I can just see him acting, and it just doesn't play for me. He's fine. There are moments where I think he's very good, but overall there are too many scenes where I saw him trying to quote unquote act to showcase his versatility. And it just kind of came across as acting, not reality. So he did a fine job, but it wasn't, there's nothing here where I'm going to go rave about it. I mean, Devil All the Time, I would have raved about that performance. This one I was kind of disappointed with his performance.
Now, talking a little bit about the story, how do you feel about the way Cherry addresses opioid addiction and combat PTSD? Because those are central to the premise and this character. Yeah,
I know some of the plot points, and probably if you've seen the trailer for Cherry, you probably think it's going to be a bank robber thriller. There is bank robbing happening. It's really minor. It is not, I mean, it's an important part of the plot, but it's definitely not something that is... I mean, it's not The Dark Knight. You know what I mean? It's not Ocean's 11. It's not a big heist movie. It's really about a guy and his life, how he meets his wife, Emily, and then goes off to war. And he goes off as a very charming, delightful normal person. But when he goes to war, he sees so many horrible things that he comes back, and he lives through so many horrible things that he comes back unable to shake the war from his head. Those are the moments where Holland, I think, is great. When he's reacting to that, I think he does a wonderful job. And then because of that, he slowly gets into addiction to dull the pain of the voices in his head, the pain in his head. And eventually his wife, who's played by Sierra Bravo, she follows him into this hole. And then it ends up to, how do we get money for drugs? We rob banks, so that's where the bank robbery comes into play. It all works. It's actually an interesting story. It goes different ways. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking in this movie.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this. Okay,
well, go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you wanted to say.
Yeah, well, I was reading some of the interviews with the directors and their sister, who was one of the writers, to just get an understanding of the story. And they use a wide variety of narrative techniques, like breaking the fourth wall, like you mentioned, dividing the story into chapters, and some other things that I didn't want to go too far into. But it sounds like that might not have worked for you, or did it not suit the film?
No, it actually, I like the chapters. It goes, epilogue, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, prologue, whatever. I liked that. I did think that was unique, clever. We've seen a lot of movies do that. Tarantino does chapters all the time. And the fourth wall breaking, I think, mostly works. I just don't think it's very consistent. I feel like it loses focus of that ability several times in the movie, where you'll go long periods where it's not ever coming up, and then all of a sudden he's talking to you again. It's like, well, what? So it makes what point of view is the story being told from does get kind of confusing or just odd at certain moments. It's not bad. It's unique. It's different. I like different. It just felt like it wasn't used consistently to where it made narrative sense. Now, maybe they're trying to pitch it from, well, it's coming from a guy whose brain is he's dealing with PTSD and drug addiction. So it's coming from his brain. That's why it's all over the place. Maybe that's what they were going for. I just don't think it always worked.
I think that's an important distinction when you're talking as a critic is, yes, I've read that that's their perspective that they were trying to go for. But if it didn't read that way for a viewer, for an audience member, it doesn't matter what your intentions are necessarily. It matters how you convey and how you put that forward. And it sounds like there were some moments where that faltered.
I got the intent. That's what I gather the intent was. I hadn't heard from them. So that's the first I've actually heard it confirmed. But I got the intent. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work consistently for me. No. And a story was like, it's a movie where I think, okay, there's some interesting stuff here. I feel like several plot points just get recycled a couple times, and it just feels repetitive in certain spots. It went on too long. It should have been easily a half hour shorter. I think it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes total, and it just didn't need to be. It just didn't need to be.
And it's worth mentioning that this is also based on a book written by the man who lived this experience. So he was not involved in the filmmaking portion. He actually declined that. But I think it's kind of interesting that this is a real story, and you obviously have more perspective on it seeing it. So what's your price of admission you would give it if the full price were $10? Okay.
Before I give a score, I do want to say this is the Russo brothers who did the previous Avengers films. There's a lot of money on the screen. So for a PTSD heroin movie, this is an opioid heroin's involved too. This is a really expensive looking movie for a movie about PTSD and drug addiction. It was kind of surprising. It doesn't look like guerrilla filmmaking. It's not Trainspotting or anything. And it's shot beautifully. Like from a visual perspective, the cinematography by Newton Siegel, I think it was, is stunning, but it's mundane. It's overlong. And I think it repeats the story a couple times. So if $10 is the full price of admission, I would give it $5.
A little disappointing for a Russo brothers film.
I was a little disappointed too. And I don't think Holland is bad by any stretch of the imagination before anybody writes a letter. He just wasn't great. But
this has nothing to do with Spider-Man.
No, it doesn't. I would have been really happy if Uncle Ben showed up though. That would have jacked the price up to at least a 6 right there. If they just, he's on drugs. Why not? See, frickin' Uncle Ben walks by. That would be great.
Oh my God.
I'd love it. Martin Sheen just walking down the street. What is going on? All right. Well, Amanda saw I Care a Lot, which is on Netflix now. And I'm hearing a ton of people are talking about this movie. It was written and directed by Jay Blakeson. Rosamund Pike stars as Marla Grayson, a conservator who's really a con artist. So think Britney Spears' dad.
How perfect timing, right?
Wow.
She'll argue in court a senior citizen can no longer look after their well-being, and therefore Marla should be made their guardian. Then she sticks their ass in a rest home, takes all their assets. So basically, she's just ripping them off. So then she meets Jennifer, who's played by Diane Wiest, Oscar winner Diane Wiest, who she considers as an easy mark. And then she finds out that Jennifer and her associates are much tougher than they seem. Amanda, by everything I've read, Rosamund Pike is absolutely phenomenal in this. I Care a Lot. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. It should be no surprise. I mean, as much as we despised her character in Gone Girl, she was fantastic in her portrayal. And I'll say she's not the same type of crazy here, but she still has a level of crazy to her. It's more the confidence and the manipulation tactics that she's so confident in her abilities to manipulate others that she has no problem going up against Big Bad in this movie because she has an end goal she wants to meet. She wants to be rich. She enjoys the lavish, wealthy lifestyle, and she wants that. It's kind of just about the role of being a wealthy woman, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
Is she as evil as she sounds?
I mean, yeah, she's pretty despicable. She's pretty horrible.
So are we supposed to root for her, or are we supposed to root against her? Because she's the lead character.
Yeah, so in this film, you're probably going to root against her if you have any morals or conscience at all. Because
I do not.
she literally is preying on the elderly, and you're going to see like your great grandparents in these like that you've seen in a home. You're going to like relay that and be like, oh my gosh, I remember when, and then you're like, whoa, wait a second. She can do that? Yes, guys, she can do that. People can do this. It's crazy. And seeing her in action in the courtroom makes it even more impactful because you get to see then the other side where she's not despicable, where she's really trying to convey that she's here to help people. She loves people. She's trying to do what's best for them. And she needs to be there to prevent their families from taking away their money and hurting them and taking advantage of them. And that's why she's here. And so when you have that dichotomy of her character, the difference, the juxtaposition of those two dynamics, you're in awe of her performance because she goes back and forth between them like it's just, I mean, it's so easy for her.
Wow. Now,
yeah,
I hear a lot of people talking about this movie. I don't hear anybody talking about anybody else in the movie except Rosamund Pike. You got Peter Dinklage, Diane Wiest. I mean, it's a solid cast. So is it just that none of them are as powerful as she is because she's so great at writing that fine line of vulnerable and savage that you were talking about? Or is it just because nobody was quite bringing it like Pike was?
I think it's because she's on another level than them. Peter Dinklage still brings it. He's this, I don't know what's up with his haircut, but he's this badass, kind of like a mafia guy. And he's here to, you don't really know in what capacity, but he and Rosamund Pike's character are going up against each other.
Okay.
So they have kind of their own feud that fires inspired by what was happening with Diane Wiest's character. And I will say for her, she really, really brought it. There were moments when I felt her character was one direction and then she just completely shifted. And I was like, wait a second. You have so much range to you in such a small capacity of a role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. She's a great actress.
And I'm trying not to talk too much about her character because she's a lot of fun to watch progress through the movie as this woman who she's one of the rare ones where her doctor believes she's so early onset in her dementia or her health conditions where she's still a high functioning adult. She's got money, she's got a life, she's enjoying time out with her friends, she's retired, she used to work hard. And all of a sudden this is just ripped from her. I mean, she literally, the movie opens with her just having to move out in 5 minutes to go to this. Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, when you talk about the emotional impact of the script and the plot points here, you really feel it for empathy for elderly and for people who don't understand what's going on. Because even though she's high functioning, if she didn't understand what was going on as someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, she'd probably feel the same way as her character, just as lost and confused. And you're just ripped away. And so it's really sad, but there's a lot of powerful, crazy moments in here too.
I watched the trailer and Peter Dinklage, and he's got henchmen and they're all in black and whatnot. And I'm like, so basically maybe I'm just going to fan fiction it a little bit. And Diane Weiss is playing her character from the Lost Boys. And these are the Frog Brothers that are going to help her out. I just kind of made that little attachment. But is this a very cynical, vile movie, dark comedy? Like, what's the tone the director, Jay Blakeson, is going for here?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly in the realm of, it's difficult because it's not just a feud story. It's not just about the elderly. It's a combination of the cynical Rosamund Pike character and kind of how the evil can always win in some way. And money has such a hard ruling on our lives. But also, they're really trying to fuel your emotions because you're forced to choose between two bad people. And who are you going to root for
I like it.
in a situation where it's evil versus evil? Because neither Peter Dinklage nor Rosamund Pike are necessarily good characters. They're not people that you're inspired by. They're both kind of terrible people. But in this situation, you're fueled by your emotion for these older characters, these elderly characters, including Diane. And so how it navigates through that is really what's impressive to me. And it is pretty funny. There are so many moments especially between Rosamund Pike and Peter Dinklage and just her character in general. I mean, she is the absolute center of this movie in so many ways, but just every scene she's in, your attention, as much as you hate it, is all on her.
All right. So if $10 is full price of admission, what do you give I Care a Lot?
$7.50.
I'm going to watch this like soon. Just sounds like
do it.
Horrible. Yet endlessly fascinating. I can't wait I wish I would have watched that instead of Cherry. All right. The Vigil is releasing to select theaters and video on demand February 26th. I saw this one. John, why don't you lead away?
All right. So a man providing overnight watch to a deceased member of his former Orthodox Jewish community finds himself opposite a malevolent entity in writer-director Keith Thomas' electrifying feature debut, which really, it is really his feature debut. This is a Blumhouse movie, which has a long-running history right now of creating these cost-effective, scary movies for everyone. Aaron, does this fit into that track record that they have going?
Yes. This was a win for me. Very dark and unsettling. Keith Thomas does wonders with no budget. I mean, there's no budget. And there's a serious mood and atmosphere while slowly dropping lore about this mysterious demon and what may or may not be doing to Yakov throughout the night. And if you don't understand what is going on, a shomer is, in Jewish faith, is a person who sits with a corpse through the night so that the dead can find peace. But Dave Davis plays Yakov Ronan, and he's very lackadaisical about it, about his own culture, about even the concept of this. He's just doing it for the money. And then he starts witnessing some wild events that make him believe that this Mezek demon is real and that the corpse had dealt with this demon for many, many years. And it's kind of, is this real? Is it not real? What's going to happen? How does he get out of it? I mean, and it's an intense, creepy thriller that I really dug.
So yeah, you mentioned that it's Keith Thomas' first movie. It is very obvious just from his IMDb. This is his first feature film. He wrote it. He's directed it. Can you tell me if anything jumped out to you as being possibly his voice in this?
Yeah, he does atmosphere more than jump scares, which I always appreciate in a horror movie. I don't like cats jumping out of cupboards because who put them in the cupboard? Who did that? I can't stand that. He's really, really, I think he's very smart and conservative with his storytelling. He lets a scene play out. And in horror, I think it's very important to let a scene play out, especially if you're trying to build mood and atmosphere. And he lets the camera play with a scene. You do start to wonder what's going on around Yakov. Like what is going on in the scenario when it's dark? What is really happening? Is Lynn Cohen stars as Mrs. Litvak. She's the widow, and she gives a terrifying performance and also a sad performance because she has dementia, but she has moments of understanding. So you never know the information she's giving Yakov. He never knows, is that real or is that just from someone suffering dementia, which would be helpful when you don't know if you're fighting a demon or not. There's a very cleverly shot moment that's very pivotal to the plot that I actually had to rewind, which I normally don't do, but I had to rewind just so I could hear the information that was coming at me. And it was shot almost very like one of those Sinister tapes in a way, shot in that manner. And you really had to pay attention to it for details about what that meant for the future of the movie. And it's just, I think he's a really sharp director, very smart, and I look forward to what he does next.
Now, when I was watching the trailer to this, one of the things I noticed about the trailer is it does that whole, like, that building up of intensity, that boom, 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 boom intensity build up. Does the movie have that same sort of feel to it, or is it just is that just marketing trying to get you into something different?
It is a slow build. It's very much I don't want to say slow burn because there's stuff happening throughout it, but that first half an hour is definite setup, getting you comfortable, know the characters, know the situation, know what a shomer is, and kind of adjusting to Jewish faith and whatnot. And then the movie continuously amps up the tension as it goes. So yeah, it's like that.
All right, if $10 full price of admission, what do you give The Vigil?
$7.
Very cool.
Definitely recommend it. Now let's go to our From the Outside In topic. This week, we're going to make it pretty simple. Great movie plots or premises that just didn't work. We each have three from a series, whatever. We have 3 examples of great movie plots we felt that just didn't work. And then we're kind of going to go bullet point through a bunch of listener choices and kind of we'll just take a vote on if we agree or not. So let's start with John, Amanda, then myself. And we'll start with round robin. What's your first great movie plot that just didn't work and why?
If I told you that we're going to make a movie about one of the most interesting Marvel characters there possibly is, what would you have to say?
Just make sure Uncle Ben is in it.
Well, anyhow, this is Wolverine, so no Uncle Ben. If there is Uncle Ben, he's actually the one making rice. But wow. So X-Men Origins Wolverine. Great idea. The comic that it's based off of is awesome. You get to find out like Logan growing up, what is going on with his life, how he got to where he is. And the movie sort of does that, but it takes all the teeth out of it.
Okay. And I think we're all going to have a little differences on a little bit of a difference on some of these, but I like that movie and I think the benefit is that I don't know the comic. I don't know Wolverine as a comic. I don't know the information. So I dig that movie. And I still like the little twist with the wife. I think that's a fun twist. And plus you see his ass and a lot of women like that. A lot of men like that. I like that.
I mean, a lot of everybody likes that.
Yeah.
I'm with Aaron, though. I think there's a benefit sometimes to not knowing the original properties because you can be blissfully unaware. And that's where I sit.
We're stupid.
Yeah, or stupid.
We are stupid.
I was trying to give us like a nicer phrasing, but stupid works too.
And maybe I don't understand the premise of the question, but the movie brings in some things.
You're not wrong. Huh? Everyone in the world agrees.
There's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are on your side. We're in the minority.
Please do not misunderstand that as we're saying you're wrong. You are not wrong, my friend. You are dead right. We have different taste, and we are allowing a lot of things to slide. That's what I would say.
Okay, because like the whole Taylor Kitsch as I liked him as Gambit. I did. Yeah, I like the actor, and I like the idea of him being Gambit. The execution of it was just way too not Gambit for me.
The only thing in that movie I really hated will be the obvious thing, which is Deadpool. It's just awfully done. It has zero to do. I mean, I like him at the beginning when he's Wade Wilson, but it has zero to do with the character of Deadpool. I don't even understand that choice. That's the only thing I really don't like.
All right. I think we're in agreement then.
Sure. All right, Amanda, what's your first bad or great movie premise that wasn't a great movie?
So I decided to go with Green Lantern, keeping on the superhero concept.
Oh, all three of our first ones are just going to connect. I like it.
Yeah. To give a synopsis of the movie, a reckless test pilot, Hal Jordan, is granted an alien ring that bestows him with otherworldly powers that inducts him into an intergalactic police force, the Green Lantern Corps. Now, in theory, Green Lantern should be awesome. Green Lantern should be fun, but Green Lantern, and to cite an individual who has been a guest on The Hollywood Outsider and who is a host on Smirk, Zach Parkerson, he says that Green Lantern should be Star Wars meets The Lord of the Rings in a superhero universe. And I think for most people, that's like, heck yeah, I want that. That is not what we got. We did not get that. We got horrible. I mean, whoever decided that we should just CGI the costume instead of just making a real costume just made poor decisions.
I'm convinced that was all of the people that had seen Ryan Reynolds, without a shirt on. And they were all like, we could get this for like 3 months. Oh, just do a CGI suit, guy. CGI suit. Let's do that.
And he also was probably not the best cast for that.
I mean, he was bad. I don't think.
What?
No,
yeah,
but
he's great.
But
he was not the problem in that movie.
He is not the problem in that movie whatsoever.
He is not the representation of Green Lantern as a character. He is not supposed to be that smarmy.
I think
yes, he is.
Every character.
No, he's not.
No, he's not, John. He's not in the comics.
He's not supposed to be that smarmy. So while we love Ryan Reynolds, and I'm on 100% board with that. That was just not the best pick for Green Lantern. And I'm just a little disappointed because after learning more about the character and the world and the comics, this could have been something really great.
I agree it could have been something great. I don't agree that I think Ryan Reynolds can play just about anything, and I'm all for it. My problem with this is it was just too much CGI. It was like a blender of CGI and none of it made sense. It's just like, let's make everything. Why? Because Green Lanterns can do that. Okay.
And so many villains.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah,
it didn't know what it wanted to be, and it had too much going on. Ryan Reynolds was not the problem. However, it would have been a great movie for Nathan Fillion to be Green Lantern. He does play Green Lantern in some of the animated stuff.
Oh, I actually did not know that.
I didn't care.
This would be, I think we have to keep in mind, though, this was before like the big superhero combustion of everything.
Yeah.
So they didn't have like a real working, I mean, to be fair, they don't really have a great working yet. Anyway, but there wasn't a good map out of what a superhero movie should be like at this point. So I think if they were to do that now, there would be much more clear direction on how to translate the comics into a film.
Well, they're getting an HBO Max series now, so that should be really good.
Yeah.
That should be interesting. Mine connect because of 6 Degrees of Ryan Reynolds. The first row is all Ryan Reynolds bombs. No, just kidding. Just kidding. It connects to Wolverine. That's how it connects. X-Men The Last Stand and Dark Phoenix. I am saying both of them. And I actually like...
Can you do this?
I can do whatever I want. So
it's kind of his show.
Yeah, that's true.
I never said you couldn't, but it's the same plot. So that's why I'm saying it's the same plot. The Dark Phoenix storyline, one of the best I know this one, and one of the best storylines in comics. It's a fantastic story. And while I kind of enjoyed the Dark Phoenix version, I did not enjoy The Last Stand in any aspect. The truth remains that Fox had dos chances to nail the storyline of how Jean Grey became the Phoenix, and neither time could they make it land. I just don't know why is it that difficult to make it right. I think it needs 2 movies probably, and Apocalypse should have been the first movie. That's what I think. But it's just wasted opportunity because that's a great storyline. John, you're more the comic guru on our show. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like...
Oh, it's a super heavy, awesome comic storyline. So it could have been done so much better than what we got either time. But it's one of those stories that definitely does not fit into the span of however long you're going to make a movie, because it needs to be hollowed out. Not hollowed it out. It needs to be solided up quite a bit more than what they did, where they're just kind of skirting along, being like, here's some random reasons why this is working the way it is, and let's just kind of sprinkle it in and let you figure it out. Instead of it really needs to have that story put front and center and good just grounding, and neither movie did a good job of doing that.
So I didn't see Dark Phoenix because that just came out 2-3 years ago or something, and I just never watched it.
Mm-hmm. You're not the only one.
But I will say, and I know I'm in the minority, almost all of the X-Men movies I've been a fan of.
Even The Last Stand.
There's something about them. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm such a fan of the X-Men movies. And I can recognize that there are some failures. I mean, that's clear. But I still like them.
Well, it's okay to be a fan of these things and still sit there and be able to say, hey, this is something I really like, because I think Aaron and I are both going to end up doing this in this conversation. Mm-hmm. But we can both go, this is something I really like. Here's some problems.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at with this. I know there's problems, but I still like it.
You know, you can easily go, Jordan Peele is a great director. He doesn't have to be the greatest director in the entire generation.
And nobody
but
has said
he's just
that.
Pretty good. It's okay. I really like him. I like what he does.
John, what is your number 2 great movie plot that didn't work out?
Oh, speaking of that. All right. We're going to take 2 of the big powerhouses from DC. We're going to slap them in a movie together. And then we're going to cut the movie into pieces so that you don't understand why they're fighting. And that's Batman versus Superman. And I'm going to talk about primarily the theatrical release, because that's the one that technically counts. Because if you watch the extended cut, the story makes 10% more sense.
Maybe 50.
But,
Maybe 50.
Maybe 50. But I remember watching this in the theater, and at 2/3, maybe 4/3 of the movie, I don't know how many thirds there are in something, but it didn't matter, because halfway through it, I'm going, but why? Why are they fighting? Why are they mad at each other?
Why is Granny's pea
but
jar
why?
going on the counter?
You know, there are just so many things that they just like really crapped the bed on as far as what they messed up on in that movie. And I shouldn't have spent so much time asking, but why? And I've been saying this for years about that movie, especially the theatrical release. I never understood how they cut that movie so thinly that you never understood in the theater release that until the very end, that Lex Luthor was kind of playing the two of them like puppets.
Yeah, which works better in the ultimate cut. When you see, which I'll never understand, when you're making a movie this huge, why wouldn't that be the cut that got released to begin with?
Right.
It's 3 hours.
Seriously.
They've proved that an opus like, you know, Avengers Endgame and that sort of Infinity War, they can be 3 hours and people will still sit in their ass in seats. Lord of the Rings proved it 20 years ago. People will sit if you make it good enough, and that would have been a better movie. It just would have been.
Oh man, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, but I just forgot what it was.
Is it about Jesse Eisenberg's casting? Because that's what I was going to bring up.
No, I'm fine with that, but go ahead.
You should not be. So you're bringing up that movie, and I am a fan of that movie. I will defend that movie. Martha, I won't defend as much, but I get it. I just don't think it works as well as Snyder keeps telling everybody it does.
No, but it's hilarious at this point.
Yeah, it's its own meme at this point. It's its own GIF. I mean, it basically just runs the gamut. But I will honestly say, I think Zack Snyder has one of the most inspired casting minds of any director working. I firmly believe that. There's a lot of actors I never would have expected to be in the roles that they were in who just dominated. You know, look at the comedian in Watchmen. Look at Aquaman, Jason Momoa. What? Look at Gal Gadot. Never, for most people, she doesn't fit that bill. You know, they wanted someone more curvy. They wanted whatever. They wanted something, you know, and so I think he's really, really talented at picking the right person for a part, with the really strong exception of Jesse Eisenberg. I really thought he was going for something more bold that didn't work. And I know Cranston was on the table at one point. Just think in your mind, John, how much better that movie would have been if Lex Luthor was Bryan Cranston. Just think.
Yeah, you got me on that one. You definitely got me on that one.
It's just like one of the biggest misses in casting. I just think would have completely turned reaction to that movie around.
My only other problem with that movie is the actual fight between Batman and Superman.
Should have been 30 seconds long.
It should have been like Superman saying, okay, so this is what I just figured out. Lex Luthor, and the whole time Superman's talking, Batman could be punching him and doing absolutely nothing to him.
Yes.
Just like, so look, just get it out of your system. But look, this is what's going on. This is what I figured out. This is how I figured it out. This is what he just told me. He's got my mom. Her name is Martha. You might like that. He could have been saying all these things, and the whole time, like, Bruce Wayne's just getting tired. That's what the whole fight should have been. There should have been no reason for Batman to just get annoyed at a human who's trying to hit him and be like, okay, now I'm annoyed and I'm going to accidentally throw you through a building.
Okay, that's fair. You're right. I don't disagree with that. It's kind of like Godzilla versus Kong. I don't see how Kong has a shot. I just don't. I just don't, but we'll see how that plays out.
Save Mothra.
All right, Amanda,
how do you know that name?
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is a movie that I hate with all of my being, but I went into mildly excited, if you will, just because of the director. And it is now my least favorite movie that has ever been made, and that is Lady in the Water.
Okay.
So the concept the film is about this superintendent who thinks he's rescuing a young woman from a pool, and he ends up finding out that she's actually a character from a bedtime story that's trying to make it back home. And he works with his tenants to protect this woman from creatures that are trying to keep her in our world. And the concept seems like it would be so cool and fantasy-like, but also could be really dark and demonic.
Like
and
Splash or Shape of Water, like something around...
Just something that actually does something with the story.
Sure.
Whereas Lady in the Water does nothing. I mean, literally, it does not do anything with the plot. And it just, none of it works. None of it makes sense. It was such a disappointment because you know who's attached to it. You know who should be making this something good. And it failed on so many levels. I know I've talked about Lady in the Water being a terrible movie, but what do you guys think of Lady in the Water?
No, it's a terrible movie. I'm with you,
Okay.
100%. Yeah, the only surprise ending for that movie was, it's over? Oh, God, I'm so surprised. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
We can leave.
Yeah.
I kind of love the movie.
Yeah, you would.
What?
You would. You just...
I really love the story. Like, the guy, he thinks he's nothing, but he's trying to help her, and he thinks it becomes his job to just like find all the people who are more important to saving her and putting them together. But it turns out that that's not his job at all. But he's actually ends up being more important to her whole life than he ever expected. I mean, I just think there's something great and beautiful about that. Where he's just somebody who thinks he's nothing, and it turns out he's a lot more than that.
Thank you for selling my point, John. This could be such a great concept, and it could work on so many levels, but it failed to do so. But I'm glad that you extracted the positive elements of the story.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, it worked for me.
Everything John said was the movie I thought I was getting.
Yeah, right.
I didn't see any of that. So I don't know if you just heard the plot and then you fell asleep. So then in your mind, because you're a creative fella, you're an artist. I don't know, maybe in your mind you just saw the movie that should have been made, because that's not the movie I saw. The movie I saw just sucked.
I purposely sat down and rewatched this movie a couple times.
Shame on you.
Why would you purposefully do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Because I really like it. It makes me happy.
I'm not going to shame you for liking the movie.
I will. I will. Give me time.
This is supposed to be a safe place, Aaron.
Give me time. All right. Well, my next one is Escape from LA. It's one of the greatest missed opportunities in film for me. I mean, and I love this movie. Shamefully love this movie despite its flaws. Despite its flaws. I know organically this is a bad film. So no one needs to write and tell me how stupid I am or how I don't get it and blah, 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 blah. I get it. Bad movie. Still like it because Kurt Russell is Snake Plissken, and I think he's one of the best characters on film in my lifetime. I'm a big fan. And the plot is about the president's daughter. This time takes a device that could shut the whole world down because essentially she's this idealist. She's being used by a thug inside LA, which is now a prison. You know, it's basically like New York, but on the other coast. And Snake is sent in to retrieve both her, maybe, if he can get her out, and this device. It's essentially a remake of Escape from New York. It's just done with a much bigger budget and a lot of stabs at LA culture. All of this should be fantastic. And there's a lot of great ideas in the movie. But had John Carpenter not been on the wrong side of his career when he made this movie, which he was on the downward slope, and had they not hired the absolute worst special effects house in film history to handle the film, this could have been a great movie. Because of those two things, John Carpenter was not on his A game. He was a few years past his prime. Kurt Russell brought it in every single, he committed to the whole movie. It's not just because I love Kurt Russell. He committed to that whole movie. And the special effects are phenomenally horrible. Just phenomenally horrible. They had a $50 million budget. If you watch this movie, you would think it was $8. And that's sad. So that had a great plot and great potential and failed in every possibility. Who's with me on Escape from LA?
I mean, I still love it, but you're probably not wrong.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Okay. That's cool. Why don't you go watch Lady in the Water?
I feel like this is the most we've agreed.
Yeah, probably.
This is weird.
Probably. All right, John, final one.
All right, so my final one, I brought it up a few times on the show for whatever bad thing that needed to be brought up, and I keep on having to bring this thing up because on paper, this movie should be perfect, with the exception of one glaring issue, which is its director and probably the guy who wrote the story. But In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege story.
Jason Statham one?
Jason Statham, okay. You know, you've got like one of the most amazing put together cast possible for a movie, and then you throw in Uwe Boll as the writer director. I think he wrote it. Screenwriter is Doug Taylor, and what you get is a movie where Jason Statham says all of 5 lines.
Not inherently bad.
All.
Not inherently bad. Could be cool.
No, not
Stoic,
inherently
mute, tough.
Yeah, it is. It is based off of video game property, but we're not going to count that against it because it has so many things else going wrong with it, like Uwe Boll, or Uwe Boll, whatever you want to call him. But you know, the cast at the time of this release, you've got Lily Sobieski, John Rhys-Davies, Ron Perlman, Claire Forlani, Christina Loken, okay, take her or leave her, Matthew Lillard, Brian White, Ray Liotta, Burt Reynolds. These are
Ray Liotta. Like, didn't he wear a leather jacket or something through the whole movie? I mean, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
I remember that.
And he's got that Ray Liotta accent. You know, he just stepped out of a freaking Italian restaurant or some stuff, and you know. Hey, where's the pasta at? You know, and
where's the king
he's supposed to be a wizard.
Where's the king? I'll whack him.
Everything about this movie, just like, and the thing is that when I watched this movie, I sat down and ended up watching the entire thing, and everybody else I was watching this movie with went to bed. They just quit. They were like, in the first 5 minutes, they're like, we are the fuck out of here. And I stuck with it, and I want that time back because how dare they put this cast in a movie and it come out so terribly.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing to say to any of that because it's one of the most awful movies I've ever seen. And I did not finish it, so I don't know how it ends. I don't care how it ends. I mean, you don't need to tell me. I don't really care. It's a movie that I think I made it about 30 minutes in and then just said, c'est Uwe Boll again. All right. He's just doing the same thing. He just does not care. Does not give a shit.
Nope.
All right.
Alrighty then.
You win.
Well, my last one is In Time. In a future where people stop aging at 25 but are engineered to live only one more year, having the means to buy your way out of the situation is a shot at immortal youth. And this character finds himself accused of murder and on the run with a hostage, a connection that becomes an important part of the way against the system. Now, in theory, this is a really, really cool story and concept. Cool. But it lacks depth in the concept. It really just skims the surface of it and spends too much time extrapolating on other things that don't really matter, including the love story. I think it falls too far into that. It's poorly directed. The dialogue is real rough. And going back to them skimming over the surface of the concept, they don't even really think through the specifics of how this would work. Like, you just bump into somebody and because all you have to do is bump arms and you lose that. Like, that doesn't make sense. So just some of those things that just you should have maybe thought, I don't know, 2 seconds about, and you would have drafted something a little bit better. And there's so much potential in it, but it just fell pretty hard.
I don't think, because it was Timberlake, right? Remember right?
Yeah.
It was Timberlake.
Yeah.
I don't think Justin Timberlake was that great in that movie either. I don't think he was a good fit.
Not as the centerfold
right.
of the story.
Right. Was it Olivia Wilde? I think it was Olivia Wilde.
No, it was Amanda Seyfried.
Okay, well, whoever it was, they fit well. It was just Timberlake did not work for me. I saw this years ago. I only saw it once, so I don't have that one memorized. But good choice. Obscure one.
Yep.
Yeah, would have been really good if they would have,
been a good movie.
Done their job.
My next one is going to be one of those where I get to make the rules. So it's the Star Wars prequels. All of them. Just all of them.
You are cheating today.
I don't think so. I didn't set this rule. And I said it to you guys earlier. It's not my fault you didn't read them. But I sent them. So you could have objected earlier. But no objection. So it stands. This was the origin story that fans thought they wanted. I mean, what made Anakin stray? What made Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader? The love story of the ages between Padme and Anakin. How did the Emperor rise and Anakin fall? And we ended up with a movie with overwrought dialogue, the worst romance in any science fiction film I can think of. Bad political moves everybody could see coming about a mile away. Ridiculous coincidences, a hero who randomly kills people and children with barely a reason, and whatever the hell Jar Jar was. I mean,
hey, don't come at Jar Jar, man.
I don't want to come. I never want to see Jar Jar again. Okay. I want him in my blind spot.
Don't.
It just feels like, and there are great moments in each one of these movies. Like there are great scenes in each one of those movies. The Darth Maul fight is fantastic. The Yoda fight in Clones is fantastic. The battle on the lava pit is wonderful. There's so many cool moments. These aren't good movies. And the story missed so many opportunities, one after another. And that romance, which is the linchpin of everything, never once felt real. Not once.
It was so weird.
It was just bad. They had no chemistry. It made no sense. It was weird because the first movie, I mean, he's like 5 and she's looks like an adult. And then the next movie, they're like, what's up, girl? Hey, let's have some twins. And it just went to Dawson's Creek in space way too fast. It just did not work for me in any stretch of the imagination. Do you guys agree, or are you, in hindsight, you're more forgiving of the prequels now?
Oh, God, I don't know, man. That's tough for me to say. Like the sequels, the prequels are one thing. Like I kind of take or leave, and sometimes I enjoy them, and sometimes I get frustrated. The sequels, on the other hand, the 7, 8, 9, those I kind of have a problem with, just because they are like direct copies of 4, 5, and 6. And then at one point in the middle, somebody completely like tries to tell the story about how anyone can become a Jedi, but yet they still kind of screws up how that story is told.
What a wasted opportunity. That was what the Skywalker should have been. The Rise of the Skywalker, whatever, the 9th movie should have had that element. That was so powerful, or could have been so powerful. Sorry.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that lost me on Star Wars as far as that's concerned.
You know, I still like the prequels. I know that I'm in the minority of people who will even watch them. I know I'm probably the only person who likes Jar Jar. I don't know. I just think he's cute. I'm not bothered by him. Don't come at me, bro. But I realize that these movies have serious problems.
Don't come
and
at
I'm
me, bro.
okay with that because they're still fun. I feel like the prequels are the ones that can get your kids interested in it if they're not interested in it. And they see past all of the problems of a film. And it's almost like they're tailored for a child because they have those very, very memorable scenes that will grasp a child's attention. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're working for adults. And so for me, for whatever reason, I just kind of accepted the prequels and still like them. And I watch them. It's fine. I know that there's some problems. Anakin and Padme, no, that is messed up. That is what we like to call now statutory rape.
Wow.
I mean, there's like you mentioned it, a weird age difference. He is like a literal child and she's like already past puberty. Like,
yeah, he's supposed to be 9 and she's supposed to be 14 at the time.
She looks 25. She just does.
I said supposed to be.
I can't help it. And the next movie, he's like 37 and she's still 25.
She's still 25, yeah.
I don't quite understand how that math works, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. And Sean Gallagher on Twitter mentioned The Last Jedi, which you alluded to, that what do you say? No one you love is ever truly gone. Anyone can be a hero. Learn from failure. Really awesome themes, but good grief, the execution was terrible. And it has the longest. Here's my biggest problem with Last Jedi. Everybody talks about that. The space battle. It's the most ridiculous thing. It lasts for the whole movie. They're basically waiting. Why would you wait if you're going to blow them out of the sky anyway? Why do you wait for an entire movie to make your move? It's just give them enough time to go on a casino heist. What? I love Rian Johnson. I think that is not a great Rian Johnson movie. I just don't. I'm with you.
They could have pulled so many other ways. This goes back to Kathleen Kennedy saying that there's no canon for them to pull from as far as where they can pull the stories from, and it frustrates me.
Yeah. Good picks, everybody. So here's what I'm going to do. Now, we've got a bunch from listeners that had sent in, and I kind of want to go through them, but like a speed round. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on them, okay? So just give me your verdict. Yeah, for great movie plot, bad execution, or nay, like you think it was a good movie. You know what I'm saying? Make sense?
Roger that.
Okay. First one,
Sure.
Nate Bruce, Fantasy Island.
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
Okay, well, you're absolutely right, Nate. I saw it. It was awful. Great idea, though. Grillbox, Spawn and the Dark Tower.
Is that a movie I've never heard
No,
of? Spawn and the Dark Tower?
comma, the Dark Tower. He's
No, I'm being funny. I'm being funny. All right, so the Spawn movie is, it has a great idea, a great premise in which it could have pulled off something great. But unfortunately, it suffers from being something straight out of the 90s and a superhero something straight out of the 90s. So yeah, the execution is kind of garbage.
Dark Tower?
I kind of like Dark Tower.
Yeah, that's...
No, wait, no, I didn't. I'm confusing it with something else. It was just okay. They could. That's one of those things that kind of walk the line between let's try to make something that's kids safe-ish, but it's also Stephen King, who has no business being kids safe-ish.
I like the movie, but I also don't know the property at all. So I think
once again, I haven't seen Spawn, but I like Dark Tower, so
I think that matters, right? If you don't really know the property, it helps.
It always helps.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, I'll try to be faster with these. All right, Peter says Cabin in the Woods spent too much time congratulating itself for knowing all the horror tropes.
F that. Nope.
And
it's a good movie.
Yep. All right.
I'm sorry.
wrong.
You can continue.
Sorry, Peter.
We should probably let him talk
No.
and say his piece, but you're wrong.
Yeah, that we're not going to agree on anyway. Chris Miller, Adam Sandler's Click.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
that one had some problems.
I don't think there's a right way to execute that movie.
I can tell you that what they did wasn't it.
Right.
Yeah.
Brandon Smith, Scott Pilgrim. The whole thing was boring and pretentious in the video game.
Nope, you're wrong.
Stuff felt unnecessary and strange. I'm with you, Brandon. Amanda says you're wrong.
No,
John,
you're wrong.
tiebreaker?
I kind of like it.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Sorry, Brandon. You and I are on this one alone. Levon Polanelli, The Sixth Day. The whole marketing campaign was built around Arnie versus Arnie, and in the film, it was one punch and over. 100% agree.
Haven't seen it.
Agreed.
Andrew Kronk, The Boy, was a good premise until the end of the movie when the film took a left turn and ruined it. I agree with that as well.
Yep.
I didn't see it.
Mark Andrew, Downsizing. What a concept that completely forgets about it halfway through. Agreed.
You're not wrong.
That sounds accurate.
Yep. John Sislo, Aragon. I kind of like that movie, though, but I don't know the source material.
Yeah, me either.
I don't know the source material. I kind of like it. I also think it's a lot of missed opportunities.
Troy Heinritz is going to be a dick. Wonder Woman, 1984.
He's wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah, Troy, I'm sorry, buddy. You're wrong.
Henrik Anderson, The Maze Runner. I was quite disappointed when I realized what a load of crap it was. Wow. I like The Maze. I like the first one. I didn't like the other two.
The first one was all right, but I understand where some people could have problems with it because it's executed very CW young adult-ish. But to be fair, it's a young adult film. It's just presented, the way it's written is more I don't want to say graphic, but it's just
gritty.
I don't know. It's more bold. Yeah. That's the right word.
Tabitha Chalice. Civil War. Concept-wise, it was super fun, but it kind of lost the plot to be a good standalone movie. The reason for the actual rift between Tony and Cap was so dumb.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's another one of those like, all right, so let's talk about this. Okay, go ahead and keep hitting me. I'm going to just talk about this real quick. That's one of those.
Fair enough. And how is that runway not destroyed? I mean, really, like all of those superheroes just pounding the crap out of it. Ant-Man's just walking around putting pothole after pothole, and nobody brings up the fact that no plane can fly there ever again. Last one, Lauren Williams. I'll never forgive Mission to Mars for turning into some weird lost love drama and not a sci-fi thriller. Good call.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, it wasn't a great movie. All right, let's do upcoming releases.
The first one is Chaos Walking, which comes out March 5th in theaters. A dystopian world where there are no women and all living creatures can hear each other's thoughts in a stream of images, words, and sounds called noise. This is another Tom Holland flick.
That sounds so peaceful.
Because there's no women?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's rude.
Okay. Next, John.
Raya and the Last Dragon. This is March 5th. This is going to be also one of those fun little deals that if you have Disney Plus and you feel like paying the additional $30, you can go ahead and watch it soon. In the realm known as Kamandra, I've heard it both ways, a reimagined Earth inhabited by ancient civilization, a warrior named Rhea is determined to find the last dragon. This stars Alan Tudyk, Ross Butler, and Awkwafina.
I'm totally going to see this.
And I did find out that is going to be in theaters too. So you can see that in theaters.
What?
Instead of paying the $30. Disney premiere.
Screw that.
Yeah.
Well, one way or the other, I'm paying $30.
Boogie in theaters March 5th. Coming of age story about Alfred Boogie Chin, a basketball phenom living in Queens, New York, who dreams of playing in the NBA. While his parents pressure him into earning a scholarship to an elite college, Boogie navigates a new girlfriend, on-court rivals, and the burden of expectations. We've all been there, right, Boogie? I thought it was about a guy who picked his nose a lot.
March 3rd, we've got some Moxie coming to Netflix. Fed up with the sexist and toxic status quo at her high school, a shy 16-year-old finds inspiration from her mother's rebellious past and anonymously publishes a zine that sparks a school-wide coming-of-age revolution, directed by Amy Poehler. I'm so in on this.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Any recent film or TV recommendations we haven't already talked about? John's going to talk about one here in a second for his streaming recommendation, but did you have anything else, John, you wanted to mention?
You know, I got to say that I've decided to dive back into Psych because I need some good old-fashioned Sean and Gus time.
Yeah.
So on Amazon Prime, all of Psych is there, and, you know, it is good.
It is good. Amanda, what about you? Sorry, my allergies are
Shameless. Yeah, Shameless is back. It's like 7 episodes into its final season, and it's pretty good. It's going in a different direction than I thought it would, and wow, it's kind of actually pulling on my heartstrings a little. So you should get caught up or watch it if you've never seen it. It's on Showtime, and you can catch up to the first 10 seasons on Netflix.
God.
Yeah,
Pass.
No, it's so good, so good.
You know what? I'll do mine in a second. John, why don't you do your streaming recommendation real quick?
On video on demand, it came out January 1st, and I only just tripped over this last weekend. It's a movie called Shadow in the Cloud, and it stars Chloe Grace Moretz. It's directed by Roseanne Liang and written by Max Landis and Roseanne Liang. And it is an hour, 20-minute movie of some freaking amazing, kind of great fun. You've got Chloe Grace Moretz. It's during World War II. She gets her, she kind of like spies her way onto a B-17 bomber, and because this is of course 1940s World War II, and she is a supposed female soldier, every guy in the plane treats her like garbage and puts her in the belly gun to keep her out of the way. And you sit in that belly gun with her the entire movie as some weird supernatural things go on, as she has to listen to these guys have conversations and just the amount of treatment that has to go through. It is so tense, so action-packed, and just crazy fun. And the stylized nature of the movie is not like a 1940s movie whatsoever. Or anything that's filmed about the 1940s. It's got this great synthy pop soundtrack to it, and the action just kind of is right there in your face. And it also has this great message about, I guess it's a message, or maybe it's a theme of it though. This whole idea in which women have to be, whenever they're doing anything, they have to be at least 10% better than men, if not 150% better than men at anything they do, and yet still have to put up with men talking down to them and putting up with just like being turned into some sort of object, but then at the same time be better, stronger, and have more grace about it. And I just really love that aspect of the story.
Preach it, Johnny. Preach it.
I saw 2 movies, and I want to recommend them, and I'm sorry I had an allergy fit. So I saw Monster Hunter, which is the Mila Jovovich, Paul W.S. Anderson representation of the game. W.S., I am convinced, means what the shit. I don't know what they were going for, but he wrote this with crayon, I think. The story is idiotic.
Yikes.
Ron Perlman's in it in the worst wig you've ever seen in your life. Mila Jovovich is actually still, she's great. I think she's a fun action hero. It's just the movies.
She's great in everything.
Yeah, she is. The monster designs are great. They're pretty fantastical. I think they're delightful. The movie is none of those things. It's just not great. If you want to, turn your brain off, take it out, kick it down the street, maybe then drive over it, then throw it into a neighbor's yard. That's about Monster Hunter for me.
And let their dog eat it.
Why not? You don't need a brain for it. I'm not saying you can't enjoy it, because it can be dumb fun in spots. It's just not a very good movie. And then I saw Nomadland, which is on Hulu, or it's in theaters. You can go either one. And it's all the rage for best movie of the year, right? It's about a woman who suffers a horrible loss. It's after the Great Recession recent times, and she decides to be a nomad for a while and live in her van, and kind of runs into people. Frances McDormand, one of our greatest actors. She's a wonderful actor. Nothing wrong. I think she gives a fantastic performance. She's up there with Carey Mulligan for Best Actress for me. I just think she does a great job. But the movie's so plotting and boring. And I think it's getting a lot of praise just because it features a lot of actors that aren't actors. They're real people who they just fed into this whole film. But I just think it's kind of a boring movie for a big portion of it. And the story is very similar to Land in structure. It's a woman who suffers a horrible loss and then basically goes off to find herself, and a lot of times that means being alone. But Land is so much better. It's so much more compelling. I think the storyline is so much more efficiently told. I just don't get the hype for this one. It's one of those. It's a good character piece. I think it's a good movie. It is not a Best Picture in any stretch of the imagination. So there you go.
Wow, so both your recommendations are movies that you didn't like that much.
I did not like Nomadland. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's a good movie. It's just in the scope of so many people are saying it is the one to beat for Best Picture. I can't even understand. Just in the last 2 weeks, Judas and the Black Messiah is way better than this. Land, better than this. So, I've already got 2 movies in the last 2 weeks that I've seen that is better than this one. So that's not even taking into scope the entire whole year. I'm just saying in the last couple weeks. It's just not the Best Picture. I just don't see it.
That's a little bit of a bummer, but I appreciate the honest review heading into it.
give it, I mean, maybe mileage may vary. Always does. It's on Hulu, so you don't even have to go to a theater and check it out. You can watch it at home. Share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group, on Twitter @BuyPopcorn. Our site is thehollywoodoutsider.com. And you can find John's artwork on Insta and Twitter and @RJohnDraws, Amanda and Veronica's Marshmallows and Smirk, and @Sink Into This on Twitter, me on the Blacklist Exposed, and Presenting Hitchcock and @Aaron Smirks. And speaking of the Blacklist Exposed, we're going to say our parting words with Amanda and John here in a second, because we're going to be joined by Troy Heinritz, my partner from the Blacklist Exposed, because he just took his son to the Lord of the Rings trilogy in IMAX. And I wanted to get a feel for what it's like to revisit that property 20 years after the release of the original film in IMAX with his son who's never seen it. I just thought that would be kind of a cool thing to talk about. So that's what we're going to go to. But John, Amanda, thank you guys as always for being here.
Always a good time.
I guess Amanda does not feel the same.
She just left the room.
Okay. Sounds great. Let's go ahead and lead into Troy Heinritz and the Lord of the Rings. Okay, I am here with Troy Heinritz, my fellow co-host from the Blacklist Exposed. What's up, Troy?
What's up, Aaron? Great to be with you at the end of all things.
I wanted to talk about this recent re-release of Lord of the Rings, which is the 20th anniversary of the first film. Well, it will be in December. And then the other two films were also released. They were all released on IMAX. And I got to see the first one. I got to see Fellowship. We don't have to explain what these movies are about. Everybody knows what the Lord of the Rings movies are about by now. And if they don't, I don't know what to tell you. Go read a book.
Or
really,
get to
really
the theater
big book.
ASAP, because it might not be there much longer.
Yeah, it's not going to be there much longer. But they released all three movies in IMAX. And I believe the first one I had never seen in IMAX for sure. And I definitely hadn't seen it since it came out back in 2001. So it's been a long time. Now, obviously, these were not the extended versions. They were just
Thank
the
God.
regular one. You don't want to go that long in IMAX, huh?
I mean, they're long movies. Don't get me wrong, and I do own the extended editions at home. So, but you definitely need a 2-hour potty break if you're watching the 4-hour extended editions. By the time Return of the King's 3.5-hour run in the theater was done for the theatrical, I was like, I gotta pee now. Get out of my way. Sorry, Annie Lennox, I'm out of here.
Well, the reason I wanted you to come on and talk about it is because, I did see Fellowship, but I didn't see all three of them. But you got to experience it with your young son who had never read the book, correct? And has never seen the original movie. So he was seeing them for the first time in IMAX. Is that correct?
And he went in completely blind. No trailers, no backstory for me, other than he just knew there's a ring and they got to destroy it.
And it takes them roughly 9 hours to do so. It's a long walk. Nobody thought about the eagle.
I mean, we could get into the whole Eagles thing and whatever if you want to. But what I can tell you is this: with these IMAX presentations, the things that people nitpicked about, I had a different appreciation for the films in IMAX than I did, I think, when we watched them originally on a 2D screen.
How so?
I honestly don't think they ever came in IMAX or some kind of large format. I thought they were all just regular 2D when they first came out back in 01, 02, 03.
Well, I know it was different when the Hobbit movies came out because those were
Correct.
HDR and they came out. But I don't recall. I'm sure that maybe there was. I'm not saying there wasn't. And I haven't researched it, so I don't know the answer. But I don't recall ever seeing them in IMAX, the first.
Yeah, because this
three.
was their first ever 4K remaster that just hit HBO Max. And thankfully, Apple was nice enough to upgrade me to the 4K versions of my extended editions for free.
Wow, that was nice.
So thank you, New Line and Apple and everybody else involved with that. So I think these were the first time they were at 4K IMAX digital crystal quality, and it was glorious.
Now, what do you say was the difference between the first film? Because I thought when I saw Fellowship of the Ring, I wasn't extraordinarily impressed with the presentation. I just felt like, well, this almost looks like a Blu-ray version. I mean, it was a good copy and it was huge, obviously, so it's fantastic in that respect. But it didn't feel like pristine or crystal. But you felt like the movies got better with each subsequent title, right?
I did. I think that maybe there was a print issue or something with the original, or when they did the transfer to get it to 4K. Because Fellowship definitely was like, this does not look like the 4K on my TV at home, because I started watching the 4Ks when I got them just to see how much better they were going to look. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this does not look like what I have on my home TV in an IMAX presentation. So maybe they're just running the film and telling me it's IMAX, but it really wasn't. Just made it bigger, because it definitely looked fuzzy in the Fellowship presentation. But when we got to Two Towers, it was like, boom, crystal clear. And then by Return of the King, you were like, this is exactly what I expected it to be. It was that true 4K, super clean lines, which of course makes some of the special effects a little bit problematic because you can tell where the special effects are when it gets to be that crystal clear. But at the same time, there's spots where there's special effects in there, and it still is a really damn good job to make you believe that that's a real freaking giant battering ram hitting those doors.
Now, how would you say the films have aged? Because, a lot of times when you look back at movies many, many years after they came out, in 20 years nowadays, special effects have come so far from where they were. But I would argue the presence of physical effects make these films look better than their subsequent films. I actually feel like the effects are much better in the original trilogy than they were in the Hobbit trilogy.
Oh, 100%. And even my son, we were talking about it in the car. He talked about the difference between seeing Star Wars, the latest 3 movies, right? The Daisy Ridley saga versus seeing like the Phantom Menace saga, and how he appreciated the practicality of it all. Because when I was like, hey, like that thing was actually a set. It was built. And he's like, there's no way that was built. And I was like, yeah, that was built purposefully so that you could actually make it have practical effects, and how much more believable practical effects are over the special effects. And he was just like, I can't believe they built that 20 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, you think about movies in history that define cinema. You think about like Citizen Kane. You think about Wizard of Oz. You think about a few others. Lord of the Rings is what we are grateful to have in cinema today with the Avengers and Marvel and everything else. Like, they did a lot with this. I mean, Peter obviously taking his nod from Lucas and everything they did with Lucasfilm and Star Wars to get to the practical effects concept. But these movies paved the way 20 years ago, and they definitely earned their best picture and everything in Return of the King. And Return of the King was in IMAX. Like, there's parts in that movie that I've never weeped at before. Little choked up. But man, even my son said, he was getting a little bit in the chest. He's not a crier like me, but he felt it a couple times in the chest, and he was like, it was good. His problem with it is they're just too damn long, which every teenager, millennial, digital native is like, 6-second, Periscope videos is all they have the attention span for these days. But I'm telling you, Return of the King in IMAX is the only way that movie should ever be watched going forward. Did
you leave when they bowed, like I keep telling you to do?
See, here's the thing.
Because I don't need that whole, I know it's important in finding out what happens to Frodo and everything, blah, 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 blah. But that, to me, still, I literally end my extended editions as soon as they bow. I turn it off. People think I'm insane. Lord of the Rings purists like yourself think I'm nuts. But it makes it so much more of a fantastic experience for me personally. Although in a theater, I would probably sit through it. But I'm just saying at home, I feel like you bow to no one and everybody else bows. I'm like, movie done. Perfect ending.
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say to that. So I've thought about that a lot over the last 20 years, because I feel like sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's where it should stop. And then there's other times where I'm like, maybe not. And here's why. What got me this time around, and I know it was a great moment when it happened originally, right? The whole, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it, 3, 2, 1. When he says,
it's really on you if you haven't seen it by now, unless you're young, I guess.
But when he says the whole, like, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you on the side of the volcano. I mean,
makes me cry.
Weep City the first time we saw it. But over the years, it's kind of cheesy,
Yeah, it is.
And then when I saw it in IMAX, I bawled like a baby, and I figured out what it was. It wasn't the fact that it's the line and the relationship. It's the music behind that moment, because as you're building to that moment, you get the Shire piccolo, and you get this like fond memory of times before, and like, man, if we could just accomplish this. And I think it was probably, in the time we're living with COVID right now, like, when's that new normal going to happen? When can I just go outside and have something that I had 13 months to the day, to get it back to normal again? And maybe that had something to do with it. But the minute those notes from Into the West come, that across the sea, those 3 notes, when he picks up Frodo in IMAX, those 3 notes were so majestic on that sound system that it just transported you to a completely new place. So when I got to the, you bow to no one, and it pans out on the map, I'm like, I kind of like the map and the whole, like, we've got back to where the beginning was. and they finish the book and they go with Bilbo to the Grey Havens and go to the ships. That's where the movie should end. When the ship goes into the sunset with Into the West theme song playing, that's the perfect moment. The cut to Sam at the end, I was a little bit annoyed by it still.
Because it goes on too long.
Well, because he's like, the rest of the story's for you, Sam, and I understand why it's there and blah, 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 blah. But that Into the West is such a powerful 3 notes that, man, like when you hear it and then you hear Annie Lennox sing it over the credits at the end, it was just majestic. But I had to pee, so I had to duck out before the chorus.
So your son, he had never seen it before. How did he, I know you said he thought it was a little too long, which I think, even people that appreciate it can argue that fairly. What did he feel like now that he's seen it? Does he understand the hype? Does he feel like it's overhyped? Like, where does someone of his age, and how old is he? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's 13,
Okay.
going on 14. So right at the time when I think most of us started to read these books, when we got into high school. And
When we were forced to read them, yeah.
Or forced to read them, yeah. At least The Hobbit we were forced to read anyway.
Definitely.
For him, he enjoyed the experience. He balked at it initially when we said, hey, we're going to go for the next 3 weekends. But after we got done with the first movie, he was like, yeah, I'm excited to go next weekend and see the next film. And for him, he actually said that Two Towers is his favorite. He really enjoyed the humor that Two Towers brought to the table that wasn't in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Gimli is his favorite. He absolutely loves Gimli and is really pissed off that there aren't more dwarves
I can see that.
in the movie. I told him he has to go watch The Hobbit to understand what happened to Gimli's cousins.
That's the whole Marvel bleeding through,
It's the Marvel generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Marvel DC thing that we've always talked about. Like, why does one do better than the other? And it's a little bit of levity. It's a little bit of humor because, I mean, Fellowship's a little dark when you watch it again. It starts out on a nice light foot, but it's pretty dark by the end of the movie.
And Two Towers is that medium chapter, yeah.
Two Towers was never really my favorite until I watched the extended editions. Then I'm like, Two Towers is actually a really great character building movie. The whole like getting to meet the Rohirrim and the world of men and introduced to the world of men and how it just grows and builds to know it's coming. But man, it's like Return of the King is still just a perfect movie in every step of the way. And to see New Zealand in IMAX, especially when they light the beacons and it goes mountain to mountain all the way back to the Rohirrim from Gondor. Holy crap, was that just beautiful in 4K IMAX. Like chills. Literally, as each one went up, you almost like stood up and cheered. You were like, yeah, light another one. Keep it going.
So how's it feel taking your child to see something that you kind of, you were a young adult or late teen, whatever it was when you saw it.
Yeah, mid-20s.
Yeah, how did you feel taking him to see it?
I liked it because at least we had conversations and we sat in the car and we're like, okay, like who was your favorite character? Like, do you understand the story? Do you know why this happened? And I think it's a really great father-son moment because it's a bonding experience over like just very basic concepts like best friends. Like your best friend right now in school, like would they jump off a cliff for you? Would they go to the ends of the earth to help you get to the volcano? Do you have a wise confidant? Do you have a mentor or a teacher or a father that can really be that Gandalf type experience in your life?
Pressure's on you.
Right. I hope I don't have to fight a Balrog before his wedding. But no, I think it was nice to have those conversations. Like you can understand how it applies to life and then how you can bring those conversations back into a conversation with your son. And I think if you have the time and the experience to do it and you're not afraid of catching COVID or whatever, the theaters, again, are super, super clean. And you mask up, you can get your popcorn and drink still and enjoy a great 3.5 hour experience. And I would suggest if you have that, high schooler, middle schooler right now, get out there and see them before they're gone. Because it was a fantastic experience for sure to see it in IMAX. I'm not gonna agree with Aaron that every movie needs to be seen in the theater, but there are some movies that are must watch in the theater presentation, especially on a large screen format like that.
I can accept that. Final question. So you've seen the original trilogy in the theater, but now you're seeing it again 20 years later. Now you're seeing it in IMAX, the largest format possible. Is there any one moment that popped out at you where you always appreciated it, but were blown away by it in IMAX of any of the 3 movies? Maybe even one you didn't fully appreciate the first 100 times you've seen these movies. I don't know.
Well, from a visual perspective, there's probably a couple. So the visual perspective, lighting the beacons and just seeing New Zealand. Anytime they did a long shot of like them running across the fields, it almost looked like the foreground where they were running is moving in super fast. And then the background of the mountains in the background just stood still. Like it was this majestic overlook, presence that was just ever there. Those New Zealand shots really pop in IMAX. The volcano and the tower coming down at the end when the volcano explodes, that was just wow. I think from a character perspective, dealing with everything that we're talking about now with the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter and just diversity, equity, inclusion in general, when the Witch King of Agmar is face to face and he, basically drops the horse onto Theoden, and then you get the reveal that Éowyn is actually dressed up, and then he says the line, no man can kill me, and then you have Mary stabs him in the leg, and then Éowyn pulls off the helmet, and she's like, I am no man, and stabs him in the face. Like, oh my gosh, like that punched so much better in IMAX for some reason. And again, I don't know if it's the IMAX or if it's because it's the product of
timing,
DEI conversations going on right now, but that was just amazing when that scene happened. And then watching him all scrunch and squiggle up into basically a metal ball at the end. I thought that effect actually played very well still to this day. Jumping up on the elephants, that doesn't play very well in the IMAX presentation. It never really played well before where he swings left and then jumps back right. That effect always bothered me, but...
How about the special effects for Andy Serkis this go around?
No, Gollum is great. Everything, and this is something I actually didn't know ahead of time, but in the Fellowship of the Ring, Andy Serkis actually voices the Witch King of Agmar when he's like Shire Baggins, when they come to the Shire initially on the horses. That's actually Andy Serkis. It's voicing the Witch King at that point. Not in Return of the King, but at least in Fellowship of the Ring, he voiced the Witch King of Agmar, which was cool.
But Gollum holds up? Because I didn't see... Gollum wasn't in Fellowship, so not really. So you don't really see him. You just see his eyes in the first movie.
No, Gollum held up really great. All of the Gollum scenes still played very well. The back and forth between Gollum and Smeagol, looking into the reflection pool and having Gollum in the pool, but Smeagol being in real life, and all those conversations worked really, really well. It's just more like the big battle sequences are where you can start to really see the special effects, obviously, because there's just a lot going on there. But the close character personal moments, all of them still hit right on the head, which is amazing. All
right. Well, that's our Lord of the Rings reflection, I guess, on the recent IMAX re-release, which is funny because so many people are, obviously not wanting to go to the theater. They're taking their time. They're waiting for a big movie that really excites them. And this was one that got you out of the house, which a lot of people out of the house, actually.
And I own them, which is this, the hard part, because you're like, oh, how many times am I going to give Peter Jackson my money? But it was only $8 for an IMAX presentation. So check it out for sure for $8. It's not a bad deal.
All right. Thanks, Troy.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Okay, guys. And that's going to do it for this episode. Remember, the next time you head to a theater, buy popcorn. Is it live?
It says we're live.
Well, then we're probably live. It's probably a good opportunity to notify us that we are live.
We are now live.
You see a live button.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, we're good. We're good to go. You sure? I mean, you're our tech guru.
Hey, I'm just trying to fake it as much as everybody else is. So, and also I'm trying to multitask at the moment because I'm trying to grab it so I can go share it and make sure everyone who wants to hear us do this.
You should smack it, and then you should
rub it down. Say, oh no.
Oh no.